All right, everybody. Cinephile Mike is here, and it is day 47 of Oscar Rewind, my series of video reviews and commentary that reflect the work of this past year's Oscar nominees and winners. I dig deep into those IMDb profiles, and my hope is that you will discover a new, older favorite, or maybe revisit something you haven't seen in a while. As always, I'll be discussing the recent Oscar connection, awards history for the film, the box office information, the critical response, and most importantly, these reviews are spoiler-free. Now, before I dive in, do me a favor, make sure you click that subscribe button because you don't want to miss any of the cinematic goodness coming here or in other playlists with other great content. So subscribe to Cinephile Mike. So, this is our last week of Beat the Heat with Double Oscar Rewind. We're not done with the season yet, but next week we are back to bi-weekly episodes from September until early December, and then believe it or not, every day, awards season review season 4 is a-coming. So, let's get into this now. We are still in Design Month, looking at production, costume, sound, and makeup teams that have captivated us. In today's film, no exception. Today, I am looking at 20th Century Fox's epic Life of Pi. Written by David Magee, based on the novel of the same name by Yann Martel, the film was directed by Oscar winner Ang Lee. Released late in 2012 after its premiere at the New York Film Festival, the film was a massive success, making back its reported $120 million budget at the domestic box office alone, making $124,987,023, and then adding an additional $484,029,542 at the international box office, leaving the film sitting with a worldwide take of $609,016,565. Now, critically, the film was well received on both sides with a critical rating of 86% from 253 reviews and a pretty equal 84% on the popcorn meter coming from over 100,000 audience reviews. Now, award season-wise, this film had a big awards run, which ended up with 4 wins out of 11 nominations at the Oscars. The film won Best Director for Lee, his second after a win for Brokeback Mountain. It won Best Cinematography, Best Original Score, and Best Visual Effects, with additional nods for Best Production Design, Best Sound Mixing, Best Sound Editing. Yep, remember when those 2 sound awards were separate? Best Adapted Screenplay, Best Song, Best Editing, and Best Picture. Now, to not talk for hours about the 81 wins from over 200 nominations, some other highlights I will hit are visual effects and cinematography wins at both the BAFTAs and the Critics' Choice Awards, a Best Score win at the Golden Globes, a win for Lee for Director of the Year by the London Critics' Circle Film Awards, and worth noting, 4 wins by the Visual Effects Society Awards and an Annie Award. These are probably the most important because the animals in this film, and I'm sure I'll say it more than once, Lee made the unfilmable book filmable. So, why is the film here? Well, shockingly, not because of the visual effects, though they are worth talking about, and we will, but specifically for the sound. Ron Bartlett and Doug Hemphill. This year, these were 2 of the 4 members of the team who took home Oscar wins for the best sound on Dune Part 2. For Bartlett, this was his second win after winning in 2021 for Dune Part 1, and for Life of Pi, it was his first nod. For Hemphill, he has a longer Oscar history. This was his 3rd win out of 11 nods, with previous wins for Dune Part 1 and 1993's The Last of the Mohicans. Life of Pi marked Hemphill's 8th nomination. Fun fact, there's another film that these 2 have worked on that's going to be coming up next month when I actually get into visual effects and cinematography, so stay tuned. On Life of Pi, both of them served as re-recording mixers, so it was their responsibility to make sure that everything, the dialogue, the music, and the sound effects all wove together into one glorious treat for the ears. And upon my rewatch, I was surprised that this didn't win, but then when I went back to see who won the sound Oscars, if not Life of Pi, musicals usually take this, and that year the prizes went to Les Mis. Okay. But we're not here to talk about Les Mis or the French Revolution. We're here to talk about Life of Pi. So Pi, as an adult, is played by Irrfan Khan, and he has an unnamed writer played by Rafe Spall, who has come because he has heard and been told that Pi has an incredible story to tell, and this writer needs motivation. He's been trying to come up with an idea to write a book. So Pi takes the writer through his earlier life as a child growing up in India, where his formative years, the actors who played a young Pi were Gautam Belur and Ayush Tandon, and what life was like for him, which involved being bullied because of his name, which was Piscine. You can figure that one out. But once he learned how to recite all those numbers of pi, 3.14, and so on and so forth, he dropped that second syllable and went by Pi. Also, a very curious child, he actually kind of caused a rift with his family because he started studying various different religions, which would come into play later in life for things that he experienced, which kind of put him at odds. But look, he was just trying to make sense of his world. Now, outside of school, his family ran a zoo with various exotic animals. Pi was fascinated by one of them, Richard Parker. We'll get there. And no relation to Peter or Spider-Man. Jump forward a few more years, 16-year-old Pi, now played for the remainder of the film in these flashbacks by Suraj Sharma, is informed that because of the internal and external conflicts in India at the time, it's about the 70s, his family is leaving to move to Canada. They have arranged to sell the animals in North America, as the profit will be higher than selling them in India, and they set off on a Japanese freighter boat. Now, one night, a horrific storm sinks the freighter, and Pi is the sole survivor, well, human survivor, on a small lifeboat with a hyena, a zebra, an orangutan, and, yep, you guessed it, Richard Parker, who is, as you can see in this poster, a Bengal tiger. Got his name because of a paperwork goof. Pi, calling the boat his ark, hopes for survival and takes extreme measures, but nature calls, as it will, and ultimately it will end up just being, as you can see, Pi and Richard Parker on the boat, trying to find a way to coexist. Not an easy task by any means, and we will see Pi rely on a survival guide, a notebook, a pencil, some food, and his wits to survive for the over 200 days or so that he does on the Pacific Ocean. Now, we keep it spoiler-free here, so you may say, well, he survives, right? Because this is a flashback story. Yes, but there are some things that come out, so we actually wonder, is everything that's being shared in this story actually the facts of Pi's life or something else? I will leave that to you to decide. First off, Life of Pi, and I have to, again, after my recent rewatch of this, I have to say, this film is probably, I would say, going to rank in my top 5 of all-time visually stunning films. Leave it to Mastermind Ang Lee, who has crafted some really beautiful films, to crack this code, and make this book, which, like I said, a lot of people said this book was unfilmable. There were attempts, but he did it. The animals, especially Richard Parker, they are stunning. And they seem so real that there are moments that actually get well-deserved jump scares. So the visuals are great. Suraj Sharma, this was his first acting role, and he does an incredible job. He did most of this, in a massive tank with, green and blue screens to project the ocean. But so the fact that he did most of this film by himself, probably with actors covered in green spandex and holding up markers, you have no one to act opposite, so you really have to sell this despair and these things happening on the boat, and he really does it well. He presents a wonderfully shaped character in this story that's really so much more than just a survival story. I remember when I got to see this film 13 years ago, I think I saw it in 3D, and even though I didn't have the 3D at home, this story, these visuals, still worked even in basic, HDX. I didn't even have, high-def 4D. The stark colors between the sun-drenched sky, the serene blue of the ocean, it's so vivid. And when we're in the midst of these sequences with Sharma's performance, it just all works so well. And then we get to these other sequences with Pi, Richard Parker, and the sea life, that if your jaw doesn't drop at the absolute gorgeousness, I would be surprised. Talking about the sound mixing for a second, because that all interplays, and that's why we're discussing this film. I have to be said, everything here worked perfectly. Given, again, those constraints, the tank, you really do feel that you're in the ocean. Every time Richard Parker's claws are clacking on the wood, or every time the boat subtly makes a move in the choppy sea, you're really feeling everything. And so it has to be said that Bartlett and Hemphill's work is solid. And I'm not surprised that they were able to capture, that vastness desert climate of Dune, in Arrakis as they did here. Now, the story I want to touch on really quickly because here's the thing. Aside from the gorgeous visual elements and Sharma's performance, Life of Pi really touches on more themes, like I said, than just survival. This is really a film about, religious belief, self-assurance, acceptance, and brotherhood. There are some philosophical arguments that are presented in the latter part of this film that really makes you think about things in a certain way and really put the visuals aside and listen to the words here. David McGee really honed in on the central themes in the book and gave a really good 2-hour reflection on the human condition. My biggest complaint, if I would say I had one, it's the 2 hours. I do feel that the film dragged a little bit in the middle. The opening sequence, when we learn about the early childhood, is great. The latter part, the ending, is good. The middle, again, visually stunning, but it's a little long. I could have shaved maybe 10 minutes off it for me, but that's my thought process. Life of Pi is a well-made 4-star film with solid performances, incredible visuals and designs. It's no surprise I'm an Ang Lee fan. If you would like to watch Life of Pi, as of this recording and posting, the film is currently streaming on Hulu. So, there you have it. Strong start to this last double rewind week. We'll keep moving forward tomorrow. As always, if you like what you heard here, you can, follow me, Cinephile Mike, on all social media platforms and on Letterboxd. But I am the Cinephile Mike with no space between. I've learned that there's another one out there. You'll see my picture there. Please, again, make sure that you like the video, share it, spread the word, click that subscribe button, enjoy this whole journey. There's so much more good stuff to come. But until then, happy watching all. And this is Cinephile Mike saying take a break and watch something new.